My name's Gill Frigerio. I'm the chair of NICEC, and I took it upon myself to organise this seminar. Fellows of NICEC, we take it in turns to organise seminars, and I thought that this would be a very interesting and timely theme for us to look at. So I've approached a range of speakers, and we've put together this programme for you. I know that many of you will be NICEC fellows and members yourselves, but perhaps the timeliness of this topic has attracted some other people as well. So we'd love to tell you, we hope you enjoy this first taste of a NICEC event, and we'd love to tell you more about it at some other time if you'd like that. As far as I'm aware, this is the first ever NICEC event that has focused specifically on race in the career development space. This opening section, I'm going to keep it brief, but I really want to set some context for the session today and outline the proceedings. And I'll start off by saying that, in my experience anyway, talking about race is quite hard. And we've learned that in particular over the last year. I'm sure many of you would agree. And listening is even harder. But that's, after all, what we as career development professionals and people working in that space are good at. Personally, I've noticed how these conversations can quickly become quite charged, and what we might term white fragility can lead to a little bit of defensiveness, and I include myself in that. So let's all go gently with one another this evening. The language is also quite tricky. A year ago, I was using the term BAME, Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic, quite uncritically and unproblematically. These days, I'm aware that not everybody's okay with that term, and so I'm using maybe UK minority ethnic or even global majority. I'm also aware that the term race can be tricky. And so tonight we don't need to argue about whether that's real, but acknowledge that it is an extremely powerful social construct that influences all of our lives. Personally, as I've written elsewhere, it took a white scholar doing a keynote at an education conference at the University of Warwick, where I work, to wake me up to the attainment gap between white and non-white students in UK higher education. I was quite shocked when, as I walked out of the room, a white colleague muttered to me, "Black academics have been saying this for years." In careers work, a glance around the room, most of the rooms that I've been in, has shown me that we have a race problem. We don't even know how many UK minority ethnic career practitioners there are. I found it helpful to listen to colleagues about their experiences of getting in and getting on in careers work, and also of working with clients from minority ethnic backgrounds. And that's part of what we can do today. But like ripples in a pond, we can also look for the outward motion. If we have a more diverse profession, we'll be better able to serve our diverse client groups. Having diverse staff will encourage UK minority ethnic clients to engage with us. It will raise their expectations of being understood. And working in more diverse teams will help us all to develop our practice to meet the needs of all of our clients. So let's just explain a little bit about what is going to happen today. First of all, we've got Obi Aputa, who is a careers advisor in higher education, who's developed a really interesting programme that he's going to tell us about and make some personal observations about his work in this space. Obi works in higher education in England, and that's how I know him, and we wanted a range of perspectives from across the UK and from different parts of the career development sector. So I approached Becky Cole at Skills Development Scotland to have an input. She was convening a BAME practitioner network in that organisation. Becky's currently on maternity leave, but before she finished work, she very kindly recorded an input for us all. So we've got Obi's presentation, about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll watch the film from Becky. And after that, we'll move to breakout rooms for some discussion of what we've heard. And if you need to take a comfort break at any point, then just turn your mic and camera off, and feel free to do what you need to do. After the breakout rooms, so about 6-ish, we're going to return and have a panel discussion where Obi, Becky's colleague Anna from Skills Development Scotland, and our other speakers, Stephanie, Nishi and Jane, will join us, and I'll introduce them, and we will take some questions, and I will endeavour to facilitate a panel discussion, which I've never done in an online environment. So we'll see how that goes. But there'll be plenty of opportunity for questions. Please post them via the chat function, and I'll do my best to make sure that we get a good coverage of the issues in that final part of the session. And then we'll be finished by 6:30 as promised. I think I've covered everything that I needed to there. So without further ado, then I'll hand over to Obi, who will be sharing his presentation just now. So Obi's a careers consultant with the Careers Group London and works at St Mary's University, where he's engaged in practice leadership in equality, diversity and inclusion work. He chairs the Access HE BAME Forum. He's also involved in the AGCAS Diversity and Inclusion Group, and he co-leads the BAME network for staff at St Mary's, and he's going to talk to us about Be Smart, the programme that he's been running. Over to you, Obi.
Thank you, Jill. Good evening. So I have my hearing aids on, so if the sound is a bit off or a bit loud, let me know and I'll turn it down. I've just recently started wearing them, so I haven't quite worked the dynamics with them, but it means that I can hear you all, and I could enunciate quite better than normal. Before we start, I just want to say I have used the word BAME on my presentation, and I tend to use it. And actually, yeah, it is a term that some people are not quite happy or comfortable with using. I am yet to make up my mind. I use it because I think it covers pretty much the whole group that I want to identify. But I'll put my hands up and say actually that I do have my own, and just to go back to what Jill was saying about creating a safe space, and that we all being respectful of each other, and learning that we all actually here to want to learn, to grow, to be better at what we do. And so I actually want to say that, you know, when I use BAME, I have to find myself when I use BAME, I'm actually thinking Black and Black students. I really have to work really hard to think Black and Asian and minority students. So that's something that I have to work really hard, but we are learning, we're all growing. So, but yeah, you know, nobody's perfect or any more experienced at this. It's just that we all at different growth points. And the more we put in the energy to learn, to further our understanding, the better we create the world and opportunities that we want to see. And I think platforms such as this is where we start having those discussions that allow for that learning from wherever we are in our own journey. So this evening, I want to share my learnings and reflections from running a BAME targeted intervention. This is quite a lot to do. I'm going to quite focus on giving an overview of Be Smart, and I'm going to talk about sort of the nuts and bolts of the study, of the project, looking at how we reached out and connected with students, and then a bit more on the impact evaluation. But I do want you to think about, so I've kind of picked these areas because I think I want you to think about maybe there are useful things in these areas that will be particularly useful for you if you are thinking about maybe doing a targeted intervention, particularly with BAME students, or rethinking your approach, and some things that might be good takeaways. So we wanted to do Be Smart to tackle the persistent progression inequalities our students experienced. I mean, our data showed that a lot of our students were having progression inequalities, particularly in going into graduate level work or employment overall, for our, with the widest gap being for our Black students. But overall, there was a difference between what our BAME students went on to do in graduate work and employment compared to our white students. And by no means is this something that is limited to our university. I think we can all agree that's something pretty common across the HE sector. But we also noticed this not just from what the national data said and our own data said. When we got to speak to students, we did kind of graduate calling to find out where our students were, what they were doing. You know, we would hear what our Black students were doing, what our Asian students, how they were not in those roles they wanted, how disillusioned and disenfranchised they were. So it was not just about seeing the data, but when we actually engaged with our students who were graduated, to actually hear, and these are some of the students that you built up relationship to see that we're going through this. That really kind of resonated and stuck with me. So my drive for creating Be Smart was not just a professional one. It stemmed from my own experience as a Black person, my experience of going through higher education system, the challenges I faced, and then also seeing other Black and Asian and minority students going through a similar struggle like I did. I used the word initiated a targeted intervention because I think it's a call for action at St. Mary's. It's our first time we've actually, tried to do something around targeted interventions. But also, I believe it's not one route to solving the problem. We need a suite of actions. This is just one step or one thing on the menu, and there needs to be other things that we need to do to tackle progression inequalities, and also inequalities in succession area and also access. So Be Smart was launched in October 2019 by the Career Service. It's a 6-month program. We wanted to help our students develop self-authorship in managing their careers successfully. We understood from research, from our interactions with our students, some of the key issues that our students experience, such as the lack of sense of belonging and connectedness, their self-confidence, positive self-identity, lack of work experience, and industry connections. So thinking about their social and cultural capital. They're also challenged in terms of balancing their, kind of maybe caring, some of them were carers, caring work, and their work and their study. Some of our students were the first in their family to go to university. So it's trying to make sense of the experience of being at university in the first place, and left them perhaps no time to actually get involved in other things around university, maybe thinking about getting that internship with this company or that top law firm, etc. So there was so many challenges that our students were telling us they were experiencing, and we felt that we had to tackle this. So Be Smart then looked at how we addressed this in 3 ways. We looked at mentoring, to provide kind of mentorship for our students, guidance and opportunity to develop those essential networks and content that we all know that really plays a part in furthering careers and building that kind of professional acumen that students needed. So that was done over 6 months. So students would meet with their mentors once a month. And also we looked at micro internships. These were 30 hours that students did. They were paid at London living wage. And again, that provided students with opportunities to gain that culture and social capital. We wanted our students to be paid for the work they did and to recognize that work, that you should be rewarded for it and your work was valued. But again, this was an opportunity for our students to build that industry experience, to gain that industry experience and to build that work experience and networks and contacts. And lastly, we did a leadership and professional program. So it was about 4 workshops, and we wanted our students through this workshop to develop their leadership skills, but also we wanted to tackle the issue of kind of self-identity and particularly focus on helping our students acquire a positive self-identity. So one of the workshops we did was how to support students in leveraging their difference, understanding how to turn whatever that was perceived as being negative and whatever insecurities and self-esteem they might have, particularly around their race, how they might want to turn that around and create sort of a counter positive narrative about themselves and about their race identity. So all in all, we had about 42 students apply to be part of Be Smart. We took on 28 students because that's what we had sort of budgeting for, and funding came from a WP for our WP budget, particularly that was geared towards our APP pursuits. So we had 17 employers who offered us internships and 22 professionals who offered to be mentors for our students, and those came from BAME and non-BAME backgrounds. So looking at the nuts and bolts of Be Smart, so these were the things that really went into making the project. Essential was a genuine design to make a difference and sustain authenticity. And I think this was important because when we met obstacles, we looked for ways, particularly the BAME staff who were involved in projects, we looked for ways to really navigate those projects and to push through those projects. It was personal to us, and we wanted to make sure that this project was successful. So we put in that extra bit of work. We went above and beyond what was needed to make this project work. But also, it showed in the students seemed to have, that there was work and that people who cared, and this was something beyond just a box ticking exercise. And it showed that we wanted this to succeed and that we cared about their future and the work that went into that. But it also made us realize that it was better to start something than not anything at all. There was nothing before. We didn't have anything before. And we think, well, actually, we have a genuine, because we have an issue and we want to make this work. So it actually made us think, we don't have all the answers. We don't know what we should do, but let's try. Let's get this moving so we can find solutions. So we realized actually the desire to make a difference, that authenticity came through in us wanting to put something into place to push this thing forward. And also we think that's really important because when we're thinking about moving beyond the checklist, making sure that, we wanted to make a difference. It wasn't just because we wanted to say, oh, this is what we've done for Black students or what we've done for Asian students, but this is actually something we want to do to tackle the inequalities these particular students experience. And it was not just policy, but it was something that was integrated and incorporated into practice. So again, this influenced how we looked at and how we went on to ground the project. So looking at how we grounded the project in BAME experience, this underpinned our methods and our practice. We really focused and centered that BAME student experience in this project. We really thought, okay, what are BAME students experiencing and what can we do to target that? It wasn't about us. It wasn't about what the university wanted. It was these students are experiencing these inequalities, how we address that. And that's something really important because it allowed for relatability and connectedness. It allowed for students to feel that they were a part of this project and this was something that being done for them and that accounted for their own experiences. But it also created opportunities for us to collaborate with people who were emotional investors. So a lot of the employers and the mentors we worked for who had from BAME background wanted to work and be involved in project because it was something that was geared towards BAME students and they could go back to their own experiences being in higher education and they wanted to be a part of that to help make a difference. Data is key. So statistics tell you trends, but people tell you about their lived experience. So when we were thinking about creating the project and went into it, we really looked at national studies and research, and that helped provide framework and inform us on what we wanted to do. So we looked at Stephen et al., for example, and he talked about, and sort of their studies talked about sort of the reluctance that several universities had in doing targeted intervention. And this meant that some of the work wasn't being done that was needed to address these inequalities. And when some universities did do it, they used the deficit approach or students weren't involved in the consultation process. So this kind of gave us a heads up on things that we should think about and be aware of. And this allowed us to frame our project in a way that would allow us and give it the best chance for success. We also looked at local data, which again gave us insights. So some of the local data we did, so in about 3 years ago, we did a focus group on BAME student experience. And the information we got from that really told us a lot about what our students were experiencing. So the issues they had with feeling disconnected from the university, for example, the issues they had with kind of having a lack of sense of belonging, also around self-esteem, and also around how they wanted to be seen and acknowledged as Black students, for example, but also didn't want to be targeted because they were Black. So really understanding the nuance of our students and what they thought about and how they felt. This again helped us to really think about how we shaped the project. We also then consulted our students as well about what they thought about ideas we had around how we wanted to run Be Smart, what was their perspective on and what they thought about it. And that input again helped us shape and refine how the project was going to go. We also looked at having champions, and I think that's something that's really important, and that's predominantly people who can influence and advocate and push the project. And I was very lucky to have my employability services manager, who was a massive champion of this project, and they were able to really advocate for having kind of funding for this and really push to make a case for this project to go ahead. But also we had kind of industry as well. I particularly had a HR manager for a big company who was able to really influence organizations at first to give us 2 internships, which at the time was everything. Now we're doing Be Smart the second time again. The same company have offered us 10 paid internships and 16 mentors. So, and that's because of the work that she did at the start, really pushing and championing this project. But it's really important to have those people who are in positions of power, positions of influence, who can really push the project and make sure that it gets the support it needed. For example, even my manager making time in my diary, in my work schedule to devote to Be Smart. So I wasn't just doing Be Smart and then doing my work. So I was given time and space for this project to happen. And also then my colleagues as well, who really bought into this project, gave me support. Simple things like taking my own appointment really made a difference, you know. So it's really important to have those champions who can really make a difference and push the project forward. In terms of reaching out to and connecting with students, I think this is where the project really excelled. We looked at kind of leveraging existing networks and channels and role models. So for example, we worked with our student union and we worked with our BAME network, so the Afro-Caribbean Society and at St. Mary's. We also worked with our BAME academics and BAME support staff. And this was really crucial because they were, again, could imagine themselves as students and understood the challenges those students experience and would experience in the workplace, transition into work and that work journey, because we've been there and they've been there, understood that. And they were really great allies in being able to really pitch, being able to pitch the project to students and get them on board. So for example, we'd brief the academics and they would reach out to their own students and have one-to-ones with them and really tell them about Be Smart and why it was important. And something that we're able to do was to really talk about their experience as BAME people in the work environment and use that as a way of really motivating students to apply. We also tapped into our direct relationships with BAME students. So what personal relationships I have with students, I was able to tap that and also ask them to tap into your own networks. And this was the same for my, my non-BAME colleagues as well. Whatever relationships and they've established with BAME students, they were able to utilize that and really target those students but on a one-to-one and get them to reach into their own networks to get students, to let students know about the project and get them involved. Also, we went out to really think about meeting students in your own spaces. So in physical spaces, we know, like at St. Mary's, in the refectory, in the back of the refectory is where all the BAME students, where all the Black students will hang out. And so I would just get my laptop and I would just go sit there and say, hey, have you heard about Be Smart? This is why you want to think about applying to Be Smart. You should apply to Be Smart. So I really went into those kind of spaces. And when I would see BAME students and when they're playing sports, I'd go up to them and really have a chat about Be Smart, what we were doing and why I think it would be a great thing for them to be involved in. And, when we're on the train home, I would sit with BAME students and my colleagues and really talk to them about the project. But we also looked about meeting BAME students in your own emotional spaces. And by that, I mean that, our data will tell us, for example, the ex-student is not present, or they haven't participated, or they missed this workshop, or they mixed that workshop. Instead of just writing them off and saying, oh, they're not interested, we actually went out of our way to connect with them and find out what the problem was and what the issue was. And when we did, we were really surprised about what we learned from our students. So some of them had like caring commitments and they couldn't do it because they had to be there with, they couldn't come to this workshop because they had to be there with the parent, or they couldn't do this because of something else was going on. But then allowed us to be able to change the narrative and have discussions with students and work collaboratively with them, how we can keep them on the program, keep them participating. We also look to lead with evidence of the benefits of the project, not deficit model. So we targeted the students based on the strengths of the project. Say, hey, get involved and Be Smart because it's really going to improve you're going to get work experience, you're going to get mentoring, you're going to get all this professional networks and experience. It wasn't because you're Black or you're Asian or you're ethnic minority. And we focused on that kind of positive framing. I'll show you kind of some of the posters we created. So when we looked at the leadership, when we're promoting the leadership aspect of Be Smart, we really focused on the benefit of development and leadership and how much employees wanted those. And we actually then had a small line at the bottom, under the apply now, you must be eligible as BAME to be able to apply for this. But we really centered first on the benefit of the program, about investing in your future, really, reaping the rewards of taking action to invest in your career. And this was one we did for our internship, again, focused on the benefit of getting an internship and how much impact that was making your own career. And again, our mentoring. So everything was really focused on benefits first. And that was in the back of my head. I was always thinking about what the students were said in the focus group. They wanted to be acknowledged for being BAME, but they didn't want to be targeted for that. And, you know, we used positive images to make that kind of connection, but really steered away from like, oh, if you're Black, please apply for this. You know, it was very much about the benefit, the strength, and as it should be. And then the race and the eligibility came afterwards. So in terms of impact evaluation, we did a questionnaire with students. We actually had a pre-questionnaire at the start of the project where we assessed students' skills, and then we followed that up with a post-evaluation survey. And then we also did semi-structured interviews with 6 students. So in terms of skills that was developed and where we saw the kind of the learning gain and the movement was in terms of self-management, professionalism, career management skills, and developing the kind of professional networks, and also around their communication skill. Confidence was a big thing. A lot of the participants really felt that the confidence grew as part of being from Be Smart, and that again fed into that kind of self-efficacy that we wanted from our students. You know, being able to be a self-author and manage their own career development. And that quote from a student, you know, kind of typifies the mentality and the impact that we saw from our student. A big thing for us was kind of that positive self-identity. We wanted us in terms of our students thinking of themselves as BAME in a positive way, and it being a source of strength as opposed to something that they saw that was, you know, worried them about their career development or how they would manage and navigate that in a work environment. We also saw about how students really felt empowered and that raised their aspiration. And again, this kind of, and when we had discussions about BAME students, kind of like imposter syndrome, not belonging in the space and not being part of the space was something that came up. And it was great to see that some students felt that that kind of issue was being addressed, and particularly when they saw BAME mentors and BAME employers who were involved in the project who were being successful and were successful, and they said, well, I could be that person, you know, I could be like that person. So that really had an impact on them in being able to see their sense of self-identity in a positive context, and perhaps that rewriting that kind of narrative and stereotypes they might have taken before. Again, we saw great impact in terms of connectedness and sense of belonging, particularly with the career service. You know, the students really felt like the team that was working on this project, they really felt like we wanted them to succeed. You know, we were really cared about them. And I think this is a great thing, because when we think, a lot of universities are really thinking, how do we engage with students? How do we build that closer relationship with our students? How do we know that our students, make our students think that we are moving beyond being tokenistic, that we really want to invest in their future, and we want them to be successful? The program really, I think, for us, really achieved that. And also it had an impact in also how the students saw the university. They actually felt even more connected to the university as a whole. And one of the things that the students have struggled and said, and BAME students have struggled with and said previously, was that they felt like the university didn't really appreciate or value BAME students, and was great to see from our participants and from that they felt actually more connected to university as a part of being part of Be Smart. And again, I think this is something that's really important, because we have to be aware of that student experience and the impact institutions have on students, and how well they can therefore feel that they can participate and be a part of the learning community, which is what we want, and which I think is those kind of barriers that really impact how students perform in their success and also in their progression. And then lastly was kind of looking at student the authenticity. Again, the fact that we had a BAME team, a mostly BAME team, the career service, actually a lot of us are BAME, participating in the project, driving the project, myself, the head of employability, and also the BAME mentors, and also the BAME and BAME professionals that were involved, and businesses, that really made a difference. It really just kind of expanded and broadened the horizons of our students. So key points in terms of me, while we are very much focused on outcomes, I think it was very important, and when I realized that it was good to really recognize student effort and commitment. Our students had so much going on, so much life and everything they were juggling, and actually coming through the project in itself was an achievement. And it was really important to recognize that it wasn't always about, you know, or how much learning gains they've had or how much has this improved, but the fact that they've really committed to this and they stayed in that program was of value and a merit in itself. also is really essential in building in those value impact evaluations and assessments, and through the project right at the start, in the middle, or at the end, because if you're going to want to have a budget and you want to make a business, you want to grow this, it's really important that you're able to demonstrate value. And that's what, at the end of the day, we know our heads of service and universities they want to see. They want to see impact. It's good for statistics, but it's really important that you do that and you think about what kind of impact evaluation you want to assess, what is impact and what is a successful outcome for the project. And also how you build it in. You know, one of the challenges we had with the first Be Smart was that when we got to thinking about data last minute, we tried to get students to do surveys and it was really hard to get them to complete. We had to work really hard on that. This time around that we're doing Be Smart, we just started actually in November. We actually built it into the process. A part of the registration was they get to do a pre-evaluation survey, and before they get paid for their internship towards the end of Be Smart, they have to complete a post-questionnaire survey. So it's really thinking, how do we build it in to make sure you collect the data? Because at the end of the day, people will look at data, people will ask you for impact. And if you can do that, that would make a big difference. And this time around now, we're actually, because I think OFS asks for three different levels of impact evaluation. The first one we did was just getting student feedback, but the second time now we're doing for the second iteration of Be Smart, we're actually doing a study where we are also doing a pre-questionnaire for students who are participating in Be Smart, and we're going to do a post-questionnaire over a 3-month period, because we shortened Be Smart now to 3 months. But we're also going to do that with a similar thing with non-participating BAME students as well, in the same 3-month period, to assess has there been any improvement or gains in their skills, etc., and compare that with our BAME students who are participating in Be Smart, just again build that credibility and build the rigor of the project. It's really important to think about the meaningful relationship between BAME stakeholders and how you improve that and really working on that. I guess it's, again, when we're thinking about authenticity and how we move the project forward and how you want to build that connection, really thinking about having that meaningful relationship makes a difference. Again, and that comes with making that time to listen to and listen to students and learn from them. When students actually tell us that, oh, employers don't get back to us, or employers don't really want to know about us because you know our grades. And when we actually speak to students, and when we spoke to employers ourselves, we actually found that out ourselves. You know, some of the employers that espoused commitment to diversity and inclusion said, well, OB, we love the project, but actually we're not going to get involved because your students come, they don't have an AA background, or they haven't high A levels or GCSE, so we won't take them on. And St Mary's, we're not a Russell Group universities, and a large number of our students come through BTEC or lower UCAS tariffs. So we actually had to challenge our employers that we work for about their commitments to diversity and inclusion, and really get them to start thinking contextually about our BAME students. Some of our BAME students come in with lower tariffs, but they've had a really horrible experience at college and school. But when they come to university, something clicks and they go on to be, they go on to get firsts and 2-1s. So it's really important we recognize that students find themselves at different times in different spaces, and the work that they do, it's very important and very valid and potential, and they are demonstrating potential, and that should be recognized. Another thing I'm going to really talk about, and I think it's important to me, is that I think my race was a significant factor in terms of driving the project and creating it, in terms of how I positioned myself within the project and being able to sort of have the access I did. It gave me insights, authenticity. I can speak, when I spoke to BAME students, I can speak about my experience of discrimination and inequality, and that gave me a legitimacy. And I think that really helped the project. But it wasn't just from myself, but it was also from the rest of the BAME staff who were involved in the project. It was also from the BAME employers and mentors who were involved in the project. That gave that project a sort of authenticity that I think mattered and made a difference to the students. But with that in mind also, I think it also, I would like to think that if people are going to be working on doing something, say targeting for BAME students, not to be put off, because I think that is even the more reason why you should do this. I don't believe race is the only way that we connect with people. We all have and share different points of connection. But after the success of Be Smart, I was asked to run a similar project for students with disability, and that completely threw me off. It's like, I've never done anything with disability. Can I say students with disability, or should I say students with disabled students? And it was, for me, it was like, this is out of my comfort zone. But actually reflecting, going back and looking at what I did at Be Smart, and what I did and how I approached it, I was able to take those things away and replicate the same thing for employability, actually recognizing that I should center the project around students with disability. Well, who are those people? Who are those stakeholders? Who can be champions? Where can I access? Where can I meet them? What spaces can I meet those students? You know, how can I get them to consult? So I took everything that I knew that I'd done at DSmart, that we've done, and applied it to employability component. So we're piloting that now. We've actually recruited 8 students, and we're going to run with that project. So it's actually made me even more convinced about some of the things and some of the approaches and how useful it is in taking it and applying it to a completely different context. So, and just to finish, Be Smart has been shortlisted for Best Widening Participation Project. Hopefully, we will hear in February whether we've whether we won or not. But yeah, just the fact that we're recognised is great, considering for me this is just a project that is close to my heart, and it is about enhancing my students and our students' experience. And yeah, references in terms of that I've used for this presentation. And if you do want to reach me, that's my email. I'm at St. Mary's. I'm happy to take any questions by email and have discussions about race, particularly around students, if you would like that. And that's pretty much me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Obi. That's really positive presentation that we've heard, and we've had a few questions come in the chat. I'm sure we'd just like to show our appreciation to Obi in the new Zoom style. So one of the questions was about whether you would just had BAME staff involved, whether any white colleagues got involved. It sounded like from what you were saying that you were able to really just run the program with a variety of BAME staff, but
yeah,
that shouldn't stop us if we haven't got enough BAME colleagues.
We're really lucky at the career service that we have actually have a nice number of BAME staff, but we had BAME staff who were involved in the project, but we also had none, and actually we had white staff who were involved in the project, and they were just as valid and just as valuable to my project.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'll just ask one further question, and then other questions we'll have to sort of deal with perhaps later. But we've had a question about whether the students had to commit to all 3 activities when they joined the programme, and whether there were consistent views about the impact of the 3 different activities.
Yeah, so students had to join both all 3 components, but the way we ran them, we kind of made them, they were sequential. They weren't always competing at the same time. So we started with the mentoring, and about halfway through the mentoring, we then started with the kind of internships. So everything was sort of layered, and we were flexible. We always knew when we kind of planned around exams and reading week, etc. And then towards halfway through the presentation, the internship, and we used the internships to also present the leadership programs and the workshop to prepare students for the internships. So one of the workshops we also did was, preparing for your internship and mentoring. So it all happens kind of sequentially or thereabouts.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And yeah, you're getting lots of warm appreciation, and congratulations on your nomination in the chat. Thanks very much. So we'll see Obi again later in the panel part of the session. We'll move on now to, having heard about practice in higher education. We'll move on now to hear the perspective of somebody working in schools with young people in Scotland. And as I said earlier, Becky O'Brien is on maternity leave, and therefore she recorded this presentation for us beforehand. And I think Michael's going to do what's needed to display that, to show us that presentation.
Hi everyone, hope you're well, and I really hope you're safe during these really horrible times, but I hope we're all sticking in there. My name is Becky O'Brien. I am a qualified career guidance practitioner working for Skills Development Scotland, and I've been working there for 4 years. I've been qualified for 2. The first two, I was doing a trainee development programme, which for me worked out really well. What I wanted to start off with was a background about myself, so that you get a kind of client perspective from someone who is BAME. So growing up, I was born and raised in Scotland, and I went through my whole education, so nursery, primary, high school, university, with no BAME teachers, lecturers, careers advisors. Literally nobody was of a BAME group. So there was a lot of isolation growing up, as well as, classmates as well. Just growing up, pretty much not having any representation at all. On the other side to that, especially during high school, I had a lot of influence or a little bit of pressure from my dad with what I wanted to do with my career. What do you want to do? Law, doctor, business? So I think it would have been really good for me, especially in high school, having someone who was like me that I could go to and ask for support. Especially with my career journey, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I had no idea what my strengths and my skills were. So I kind of plodded through high school, if you will. I ended up getting grades to go to university, and I studied business, which was okay. Like, I did enjoy it, and it gave me scope to do a lot of different things, which was really good. When I was at university, I got a 2.1 degree, and through this experience I also did a work experience, which was at a recruitment company, and I quite liked it. So that was something that I was maybe thinking about, recruitment, maybe going into that. I remember about a year before finishing university, I made a CV and I started to kind of send out to graduate level jobs, just to kind of put my foot in the waters, because a lot of them wanted you to apply quite far before you graduate in. So I applied for so many jobs, like graduate apprenticeships, and did not hear back from one. And it could be because loads of people applied. I was on track to getting a 2.1, like what most people were. I had gained work experience, like quite a lot of work experience. And I felt as though, because I had had experience in a recruitment company, I felt as though like my CV and applications were quite good. So I was really confused as to why I wasn't getting even a phone call back. And it made me think, is this because my surname is not Scottish? Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm mixed race? It was a really upsetting time and a really frustrating time for me. And it got to a point where I was applying for jobs genuinely without my surname on a CV. I would send Becky. And it was a really horrible time. It got to a point where it was maybe around 4 to 6 months before graduating, and I decided to get LinkedIn, or to use LinkedIn. I had it, but I didn't use it. So I decided to use my LinkedIn account. Again, my dad gave me that advice, use LinkedIn. So, and that did come in very handy. So I used LinkedIn, got lots of networks, started to contact lots of different directors, CEOs, managers. I was like, please, I just want a job. So I ended up getting my first kind of graduate level job in recruitment, and it was a really good experience for me because I was able to understand what strengths and skills I like to use and how I could use that moving forward. What I really, really, really enjoyed about working in recruitment was seeing people's CVs and genuinely starting from the bottom and just trying to understand their career journey of how they got to where they are. And everyone was so different and had different turns, and it just really showed me that there's not one way to get to where you want to be. And that's what I found really interesting. I also really liked communicating with the clients over the phone, building a relationship with them. After working in recruitment, I worked in student admissions, and again, I really liked being able to go through people's personal statements and finding out about why they wanted to apply for this course and looking at their journey and experiences. Then I was in a contract, it was coming to an end, and I thought, right, I really want to start thinking about what I want to do. I feel like I have an idea of the skills and strengths I like to use. I'm just not sure what job fits into that. So I did a lot of research and I came about a careers advisor, and it sounded really, really good. Being able to help young people and adults with their career journey, coaching, guidance, sounded really good. And then I came across Skills Development Scotland, and they were taking on a trainee careers advisor. I thought, this is fantastic. So I applied for that and went through the interview process, and I was so glad that I managed to get an opportunity to work there. Not only because I was really interested in becoming a career guidance practitioner, but finally because I could help clients like myself when I was younger, who needed support from somebody like them, and having that BAME representation. Now moving forward, now that I'm qualified, I've really wanted to kind of get my hands dirty and to give back and to make people aware of issues that occur with BAME people, especially throughout their career journey. And I decided with George Floyd, with what happened with him, to do a blog on Connect, which is an intranet that we use, about my experiences growing up in Scotland with racism, things that I've faced. And it got quite a lot of attention from my company, and we've now set up a BAME group, a BAME network, and we are working on new resourcing policies and also making staff aware of and trying to tackle unconscious bias. And so moving forward, I really want to continue doing that as well as my career guidance role. So I really just wanted to give you an idea of the two different roles for me. So my background as a client and the troubles that I kind of faced as a BAME person, but also what my role as a BAME career guidance practitioner can do to help both staff and to help clients. Thank you. Bye.
And I'm sure we wish to thank Becky just by sending positive vibes through the internet to her as she cares for baby Harriet. But it was wonderful that she took the time to record that for us. And her colleague Anna is with us today, so I'm sure in some way, Anna, can we ask you to pass on our thanks? So we've heard a lot, and which is great, and we thought it would be useful to have some processing time that's not recorded, where people might feel that they want to reflect on what they've heard and discuss that with others. So we're going to go into breakout rooms just for 10 minutes. And our question really in that group is, what do you think of what you've heard, and how do your views and experiences impact your work in the way that we've heard from Obi and Becky about their views and experiences? So in terms of those groups, I think it'd be nice to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak if they wish to, but really it's your time, and we'll see you back in here for the panel discussion just after 6. Thank you. And now we'll move to, as I said, the final part of the session, where we've got a panel of people who are involved in very different roles right across the breadth of the career development space. So I hope that will give us a way of teasing out some differences and different perspectives as we discuss the issues that have been raised this evening. So Obi you already know, but I'll just invite the other panelists to introduce themselves. Stephanie, would you like to say hello?
Hi, I'm Steph. Hello, everyone. I'm an executive coach and career coach, and I'm also on the board of the CDI.
Thank you. And Anna, are you here? I can't quite see you at the moment.
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm a school-based career coach for Skills Development Scotland. And Skills Development Scotland, for those who don't know, that's the Scotland's career services.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Jane, over to you.
Oh, hello, I'm Jane Saul Patterson. I'm a freelance career coach and trainer. I'm working as an associate with two social enterprises at the moment. One is Stay Nimble, and we work digitally and online with people from a range of different backgrounds, but with a particular focus on people from low income backgrounds. And I'm also working for a local social enterprise in Bristol where I live. And we're focused on 16 to 25-year-olds, on their employability, and we particularly focus on young people from ethnic minority backgrounds.
Thanks, Jane. And Nishi.
Hi everyone, I'm Nishi, and I run a gender diversity consultancy which specialises in supporting women in the workplace, and we do that through a number of kind of attract and retain ways and various initiatives. And I also run a social enterprise supporting women back to work after they've had a career break, so very much longer term unemployed, people with potentially multiple barriers to work as well.
Thanks, Nishi. So, as I said, I'm going to attempt to facilitate an online panel by fielding your questions in the chat and perhaps grouping them together and directing them in different ways. But whilst you're starting to put questions and comments in the chat, I will start us off by asking one of my own. So I'm interested to hear what panel members think about how we can further diversify our profession and attract and develop more minority ethnic practitioners. Steph, you're on the board of CDI. I wonder what your thoughts are on this one, first of all.
Thanks, Jill. So firstly, I don't have a quick, easy fix answer to this. I wish I did. But when I was reflecting on this and listening to Obi's presentation, I came up with 3 principles around this. So the first thing I was thinking was collaboration. And whilst I don't think it should be just up to minority ethnic people to have to drive this, I actually think it's much better done in collaboration. So I really liked what Obi had to say about having mentors, both BAME and non-BAME mentors in there. I think it should be a collaborative approach in order to drive any change in any business, society. You have to take people on a journey with you. So I think you have to be able to take everybody on that journey and not just, whilst it may be lived experience for ethnic minorities, it needs to be done in collaboration. And actually, one of the things I'm most proud of and finding most rewarding at the moment is the work I'm doing with the CDI on the board of how we're driving the EDI agenda, working with Jan, bouncing ideas off each other, and everybody being really passionate about it, not just me. So I found that really, really welcoming. So that's the first thing, collaboration. The second thing I thought of was role modeling, and just having more role models of other career guidance practitioners. I work in private practice as an executive career coach. And I have to say, particularly in leadership positions and executive coaches, it is not diverse at all. Worse so than in career guidance, I think, from having a little bit of experience in both worlds. So that is one thing, is we need more role models, and we need to showcase more work of other ethnic minority practitioners. And also, I think it's accountability for us to find role models as well. It took until probably this seminar for me to think, actually, I don't know what other ethnic minority role models I have who work in this profession. So I had to then Google people, and then I found some, and then I connected with them. But I can't believe I'd never done that until now. So I think there's an element of ownership in there, and everyone having accountability for that. And then finally, one of the things that I loved about Obi's presentation was like the detail and the rigor and the tracking. And so it's not just always about one big idea and a communication statement. It's about the small details, the small actions, the small steps, and being really consistent with those, and not letting them slip. It's that sustainability element and the tracking, and how are we making an impact, and how can we hold ourselves to account, and evaluating and constantly looking at it. And so it might be things like, targeting, proving impact. It's also, little things like making sure we've got articles in Career Matters magazine, the contributors from an ethnic minority background, not just the photos, but the actual contributors, which I know we are doing now, and we're trying to reach out to get more. So it's those small details. So I'll shut up now and let the rest of the panel speak as well.
Thanks, Steph. Some agreement with you coming through in the chat. Are there any other panelists who want to comment on that issue about minority ethnic practitioners getting into careers work and getting on within careers work?
I might like to just say something.
Thanks, Jane.
I really think that we need to look at more positive action traineeships. So more opportunities targeted at ethnic minorities to be able to learn to either train on the job and take the qualifications as well. And I know that there's, if you look to other professions that have done this, it does start to make a difference. And the other thing is, I think we need to actively promote the role of careers advisors and career coaches in different ethnic minority communities. I think we need to take it out there. I'm currently working with some Somalian women, and it's not even a role that they'd ever thought of. And I think it's talking to different groups of communities about the role and sort of promoting it as a career choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of add on to Jane's comments there, I think that's interesting, and it probably, culturally as well. But certainly when I came to my family and said I was going, coaching is what I wanted to go into, it's almost like I'd sort of said something that was quite alien, really. So what is coaching? Is it teaching? Are you going to be teaching at university? I'm like, no, it's not. It's coach. So it's that whole change in the narrative as well, isn't it? And explaining it so that it kind of has value within your kind of family setup and culturally set up. So that, but going back to kind of Steph's point around that attract part of coaching, I think that we've definitely got this. We haven't got the statistics to back this up, but we know that there's a lack of diversity coming through the pipeline for coaching as well, and that there's very much a need to kind of, you can't be what you can't see. And I think that's such a powerful message, really, isn't there, within that, and not necessarily having it as a token thing to have kind of Black and ethnic minorities in magazines and kind of facing it and not making that the main focus, but equally having that kind of overall piece to ensure that there's writers, the collaborators are also within that same sort of theme, really. I hope that makes sense.
Jill, can I just quickly add to what Nisha was saying, and also
Sure.
what Jane just said? I think we have to really look at understanding what experiences do we value when we're asking for practitioners from career practitioners and coaching in this field. And I think organizations that are looking to recruit and bring people into diversity into their recruitment, into their workspace, is like, well, what experiences do we value? And when we're thinking about recruiting and we writing those job descriptions and say this is what you need, why are we saying this? Why are we asking for that? And really think more diversely about the experiences and that we want people to bring, and think, how can we diverse what we're asking and what we think makes a good careers practitioners? Why do we think like that in the first place? It's really on picking what we offer as the standard, as the benchmark, and really think more about that. So one of the things I'm doing with the careers group is really thinking, going through the recruitment policies and thinking, well, actually, why do we ask for this? Why do we do this? Because something shows that our stats show we recruit a certain kind of number of people, and a certain and a large proportion of our careers consultants are very homogeneous. So it's like, what is it in the way we recruit and the way we advertise that attracts a certain people? And so really thinking about what we do, and also when we're thinking about progression and succession, what are we evaluating? I said, well, actually, you're going to be a senior. This is what you need to become a senior consultant. What is that? Why do we ask this question? And I think that's really important about how we then reach out to communities and value the experiences we want to bring into those spaces we want.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just it's interesting to note, isn't it, that we've got different employers with different cultures in terms of recruitment in this space. So we've got universities recruiting, schools and colleges recruiting, organisations like Career Wales, National Career Service, Skills Development Scotland recruiting. And then we've got self-employed people deciding that this is a viable sort of area for them to practice. So thanks for that. We've got a number of questions coming in now. So, and the one I'm going to go to now, you've kind of introduced us to there, Obi, because Valerie's commented that, you know, getting in is only the first step. How do we support, we as career development practitioners support those in early career who are navigating challenges to diversity, equality and inclusion in the workplace, perhaps in spite of legislation or organisational policy? I wonder if there's anyone on the panel who'd like to, who perhaps has experience of supporting clients in that way, on those issues, who could speak about that for a bit.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question? In the workplace, did you say?
Yeah, how do we support those in early career who are navigating challenges to diversity, equality and inclusion in the workplace? Go for it, Steph.
Yeah, I don't want. If anyone else would like to speak first, I don't always want to be the one to speak first. But I just think, you mean as career coaches or career guidance practitioners, it's, you know, no matter where you're from, what colour you are, I think it's about just coming back to those fundamentals of empathy and building that trust. So if you might not have that shared experience, you might not be able to have the answers on how to deal with it. And there might be a whole load of complex issues going on for those individuals. But I think if you try and shy away from it or not mention it or not try and address it, then you're going to break trust. So I think it's about being honest, having that empathy and signposting. And actually, we all have a responsibility to learn about this, learn what's going on for people, learn about what the challenges are that different ethnic minorities face. And I didn't know a lot about this. I'm not an expert at all in this. I've had to learn over the last year, like everybody else. So it's about continuous learning and building that trust and just really using the coaching skills.
Thank you. Anyone else on the panel want to comment on that getting on within the organisation piece?
I would say, when I was at the careers group, I really had, I don't know if any of you know the careers group, is a really slick machine. It's a big slick machine, and I really struggled when I joined it because my background wasn't in careers. I worked in recruitment and I worked in welfare to work, and then suddenly go from that model to the careers group model. I really struggled with that, and I honestly say in my first 2 years I really struggled. I had depression and I almost quit. And I had a new manager who came in, and I suppose for me, I had this kind of imposter syndrome, and I felt like I didn't belong in this space. I'm not like them. I don't speak like that. I don't act like that. And I don't have the same experience. I was different, and my difference was there in my experiences and how I looked. And that was a barrier for me. And I think what made a difference was having a manager that taught me to leverage my difference and taught me to fall back and again value the skills that I had, and showed me, said, you know, in the careers group, we said, you have to do this. This is the careers group way of doing things. This is how you get from A to B, and this is the result we want. And my manager wasn't careers group. She was St. Mary's and the employability service, and she said to me, I want you to get to be in your own way, in your own skills, and valuing the skills I had. And so I no longer was preoccupied with trying to fit in and trying to do it that way and failing and being aware, but actually recognizing the skill sets that I have and using that to achieve success. And because of that, that's totally changed. And it so happens that manager was paying, but my team leader, she's white, and we have discussions. We have open discussions about race, about experiences, and it's great to talk about that. It's great to bring that out, and it's not some kind of insidious thing that you hide. And we talk about that. want to learn about her experiences and she wants to learn about my experiences. And I think having that dialogue, again, it's just brought us really close, and I get the support I want. And we have discussions about race that we don't have with other people. And so for me, that's really important, I think, really valuing experiences, different experiences, and empowering people to achieve success, but with the tools and the skills that they have. Again, when we say to people, this is how we want to do it, this is the only way to do it, we then other their own experiences, we then devalue their own experience and the skill sets and strengths they could bring to make a difference. And I think when we do that, we subconsciously push people away, I think.
That's wonderful, Obi. Thank you for sharing that. And it does pick up actually a comment that Jan had made and others further down the chat about people staying in career development work. So thanks for that. There's a couple of other issues that have come up in the chat that I'll just name now, and I think they'll be all we get time to discuss. The first one is about someone's asked whether anyone's got any knowledge or experience of working with BAME parents of young people in schools. And given that Anna works in schools, I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. So that's parents. And then the other question that's come up has been about advocacy work with employers. That was mentioned earlier about the importance of advocating with employers and getting them involved. So just wondered if anyone's got any tips about moving that forward. So first of all, parents then. Anna, could we start with you, please?
As a school-based careers advisor or career coach, I get to work. I'm also based in, I work in Glasgow, and the school that I'm at actually has so many young people from different ethnic minority backgrounds. And within that, as a way of trying to get the message across, there's the whole cultural aspect of things as well. So you find that most of the things that you will be discussing with a young person clashes with what the parents also think. So in terms of involving parents, I tend to involve parents with most of my engagements with the young people as well, just so that the parents have a clearer understanding of the world of work. Because again, depending on the parents that you're involved with, most of the parents, you find that they could be asylum seekers, they could be refugees who have just come into the country. So their awareness on the labor market information might be limited, and therefore, when they are speaking to their children, they might be even misinforming them as well. And again, because the way things are in this country might be slightly different from where they are coming from as well. So just engaging more with the parents on a one-to-one basis as well does help in terms of engaging with the young people better. And also, because I'm quite aware of the culture, of the language barrier as well, I tend to, in terms of engaging with parents as well, I do have English as a second language event that I hold or host every year in my school that involve all the parents, just so that the parents can know the opportunities that are available out there and the different pathways that young people can take as well in terms of moving forward as well with their careers. So that way that it helps parents know and best advise as well, best advise their children when they get back home. So speaking more to parents on a one-to-one basis and in group occasions as well. And again, just encouraging them to come and see me whenever they feel is important, because I feel parents are more influential in terms of what young people end up becoming. So it's important to work collaboratively with them.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really important thing to name, isn't it? Because we have this can have this fairly problematic, wholly individualized notion of career as something that's only owned by the person, and not recognizing the context and the influences around them. So that's the English as a second language event. It sounds like that's something that's not perhaps a targeted scheme, but it's a scheme that is recognizing additional issues and even kind of almost inviting people on that basis to participate.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Anyone else want to comment on parents from the panel? I guess those of you working with adults, you're probably not, maybe people are talking about their parents, but not not necessarily bringing their parents with them. I'll move on then to employers. I wonder whether anyone's got any thoughts about how we can approach employers around this, and the advocacy part of our role, which is of course a really important part of what we do as career development professionals.
I might just talk very briefly about the social enterprise organisation that I work for that works with young people. So what we've done is we're working with UE Bristol to develop a inclusivity and inclusion program for local employers. So we want young local employers to really understand about the needs of our young people of colour. And so we've actually in the process of developing a training program, which we're going to start co-delivering next month. So I think that's one of the ways that you can work by proactively going into organisations and actually delivering programs that look at what are the needs of young people from ethnic minorities, and working with them on things like inclusive leadership, on intercultural communication, and also how to effectively recruit people from ethnic minorities as well.
So there's a recruiting and leading people once they're in piece there, which has been referred back to in the chat in relation to having those conversations with people who are having progression issues, and just being open to listen to them. That's great, thank you.
The only comment really to add on to that, and I think Obi's example of his team leader was a really positive one, but not everybody has those positive experiences, do they? And I think until we see changes like the ethnicity pay gap come into play, which hopefully will soon, I think that will really shine a light on the disparities between how our, Black and ethnic minorities are paid in comparison directly, just like we have with the gender pay gap as well. I'm kind of looking at it from a retention point of view and progressing our leaders within the workplace, because we know from reports, there's a McKinsey report, which is Diversity Wins, which was released last year, which highlights that, people from Black and ethnic minorities we've got a diverse workforce, is 36% more likely to be profitable. So some real hard facts and figures around kind of, that disparity taking place. So the responsibility is there, but I think similar to Obi's experience, it depends on who your relationship with your manager and that kind of lived experience. It can also be quite a negative experience as well. And I think that the sooner that light is shone on employers, the better, I think, in that retain part of our service.
And that's where people in the chat have been putting about the imposter syndrome, and I have seen that a lot. If I have worked with ethnic minority clients who are UK based as well, they were saying that they just don't have any role models, and I have heard about the imposter. I think I've probably experienced that myself, but without being conscious of it. I maybe not really realised it at the time. So and as you say, the companies are quite good at having targets at recruiting people in, and there's quite often specific targets at that. What they're not so good at is then taking those targets and then trying to get those targets into leadership positions within the organisation.
And that pay gap reporting, when it's made mandatory, will, as it has with gender, it's another way of shining the light on that conversation, isn't it? And recognising, perhaps it will show up the extent of the occupational segregation that we have with particular sectors as well, some being very white. I'm including higher education in that, and others being much more diverse.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think not as much research on coaching, but I did read something that's quite interesting on HR, and I think that the article title was, why is HR so white? And it's a similar sort of dialogue, really, isn't it? In sectors, the STEM sectors, and HR, as you said.
Well, that brings me to The final point that I wanted to share with folks today, which is that my personal perspective is that the onus is on white practitioners, the majority, to do the work here, to think about how we can be allies, to explore our own. Probably I'm preaching to the choir here because you're here at this event, if you're, you know, the white members of the audience, but I have put together, and I'm just going to share a list of resources, and we will email this out as well with if I can get to the top of the page, we'll email this out with the slides as well. So first of all, there's been an excellent article in the January edition of Careers Matters about unconscious bias by Emma from University of Western Scotland and Uganda. And that's really the work, isn't it, to think about our unconscious biases. The CDI are curating some resources, and I strongly also recommend, it's quite old now, but this piece of work called Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, which is a sort of reflective tool for thinking about how you can acknowledge any white privilege that you may have. And there's some other resources there, and if that's not enough for you, there's down here at the bottom, colleagues at the University of Warwick, where I spend my days. Well, not really, obviously, but you know, I'm on the payroll. They have we've curated a reading list called Black Lives Matter. It's really detailed, and there's lots of stuff in there about structural racism, and particularly an anti-racist education, decolonising the curriculum, and so on. So we'll send that round, but that was just a starter that I put together, and I'd love to hear any more. Well, we haven't eradicated systemic racism this evening, but we have had a really useful series of conversations and time to listen and share our thoughts. The chat is brilliant. I'm certainly going to save it and encourage others to do likewise. And I want to thank you all very much for coming, to thank our speakers, Obi and Becky, and our panelists, Nishi, Anna, Steph and Jane, and Michael for the technical support, and all of you for coming along and participating. And I really hope that this can be a useful stage in the conversation going on within our area of practice about how we can be anti-racist in our work. Thank you.